fight fans, to another episode of BTR Boxing Podcast with me, your host, Sean Bastow. Now, today's bonus episode is all about the legendary story, and I say legendary because it really is, of Chick Cocky Knight. Now, Chick Cocky Knight is a guy who has many roles throughout his life and his professional career, one of them being a professional boxer, one of them being a professional wrestler. He also was in a couple of films along the way, and he also brushed shoulders with some of the stars of that particular era. We're looking at the 1920s, 30s and 40s and even 50s. So it's really good to get to know a little bit more about him. And I'm speaking to his great-nephew, Andrew Scott. Now, Andrew is currently writing a book about Chick's life at the moment, so he does delve into a lot of detail about his career, his life, some of the feats that he was involved in, including saving the life of more than 2 people on separate occasions. So it is a really interesting episode. It's not all predominantly about boxing, but there are some really good ties to the sport, which is why I felt it'd be a fantastic episode and a great detailed story about the life of a man that's not really recognised maybe the way he should be. And I'm sure once you've listened to this, you'll probably agree. So without further ado then, this is the legendary story of Chick Cocky Knight. I'd like to welcome on today's episode to the show Andrew Scott, who at the moment is writing a book about his great uncle, Chick Cocky Knight. And today we're going to be discussing his storied life and his storied career in many sports, including boxing. So Andrew, first and foremost, thank you for coming on and thank you for sharing this story with us today.
Pleasure.
So Andrew, obviously, we want to know a little bit more about Chick, and we want to know a little bit more about his background and obviously how he got into boxing at one point. But of course, share the story from the beginning. Let us know and talk to us about where it all began for him.
Sure. Well, Chick grew up in Hammersmith, West London, in 1903, and his father was a taxi cab driver, probably one of the earliest that we know about from that time. He was one of 9 kids that all grew up. They were all. Majority of them all schooled around the West London area. But there was a period in Chick's life where his mother passed away in 1912. So Chick is still fairly young. He's not sure of what to do. There's some family upset at home. So him and his brother sort of run away from home, effectively live on the streets. Chick's sister persuades him that he's got to do something with his life, and she lies about his age and signs him up to go into the army, which he does. He signs up to the 1st Battalion Suffolk Regiment, and he ends up in Gibraltar, as he also serves in India, in Singapore. But whilst he's in the services, he takes up He's fairly slight in build when he goes in, but you can see from the pictures that managed to obtain whilst he's been in the army that he's obviously building himself up. Whether that's through training or physical exercise or whatever. So he becomes quite adept at and successful at both wrestling and boxing whilst he's in the army, and he achieves champion, the level of champion in the army for both sports, for both wrestling and boxing. It's remarked in several newspaper reports that when he turns sort of professional wrestler, they refer to him as a champion of India at boxing, and in the army, obviously whilst he's in the army, and champion of wrestling as well. And so he's obviously fairly competent. He's a light heavyweight at that time. He's probably around the 16 stone mark. And like I say, he's out in Gibraltar. And this is where 1924, this is where the first of his 3 life-saving feats get reported. What happened was there was a bathing party that went to a place called Catalan Bay in Gibraltar, and the waters around there are quite difficult in terms of the current around there. So the bathing party goes out. One of the party falls into difficulty. He's about 300 meters out from the shore, and Chick swims out and brings him back. And this gentleman's got the name of Private Durant, Edward Durant. This is quite significant, but he brings him back, performs CPR on him, so effectively brings him back to life, if you like, and as a result of that, he gets a certificate from the Royal Humane Society, which is presented to him at the barracks, Garrison Barracks, by the governor of Gibraltar. So that's quite a mean feat, and he swum 300 meters out, quite treacherous waters, brought a fellow soldier back to shore, and he's basically saved his life. We roll forward then to 1927, and by this time Chick has left the services, and obviously he's back in West London, and he then emerges as a professional boxer, and it's only for one fight that we've got him listed, and that's a fight to take place in Fulham, back on the home turf, and then he sort of disappears off the scene, and we roll forward 5 years later, and he turns up. He's embarking on a career as a professional wrestler. He's over in Czechoslovakia at a tournament, and that sort of kickstarts his professional wrestling career, which goes through from 1932 to 1958, and he fights all over the world, sometimes under different names. He goes under a different name when he fights abroad, but obviously in the UK there's various connotations of his name. He's either Chick Knight, Cocky Knight, Chick without a K on the end, the Crafty Cockney, Perky Cockney, Killer Cockney. There's all these different things, which has proved interesting, quite complicated in terms of researching his fight history, because again there was nothing recorded by himself with regards to how many fights he had as a wrestler. But then it emerged that whilst I was doing the research, and obviously with regards to the army side of things and seeing him as a boxing champion as well, I thought to myself, well, I just wonder if Chick actually turned professional boxer. This is prior to discovering the 1927 fight. I got in touch with Miles Templeton, who's a boxing historian, and managed to find. He said, "Yeah, Chick was did turn professional. We've got him. He had him recorded from 1935 to 1936. So this is 3 years into his professional wrestling career that he dons the gloves again and has 7 professional fights, and it's quite interesting actually, because he wins 4 out of the 7 fights. Fights at the Royal Albert Hall, fights in Hammersmith, in Fulham again, fights in Leicester, which is his last one. And that obviously prior to us doing this, just a conversation we were having before, like I say, the last significant fight is with Reggie Mean, who was the heavyweight champion of the British Empire, and he puts Reggie down twice in that last fight. So he's a pretty good fighter himself, Chick, and he's obviously got quite a force behind his punches. But sadly, the Chick gets injured in the fight, and it turns into a bit of a fiasco, according to the newspaper reports. But there's over 1,000 spectators at this fight up in Leicestershire, in Colville, and like I say, Mean emerges victorious from that, and Chick, doesn't fight as a professional again. So goes back to the wrestling, but obviously this was running alongside the wrestling career, which made it interesting. And nobody in the family had ever known that Chick had turned professional boxer. We hadn't sort of thought that as an element to sort of add to the colourful life that he had, whilst he was alive. Which certainly, from all the research and everything that I've uncovered, has revealed basically that it was an extensively colourful life.
No, it was interesting that we had a conversation off the air about the fact that whilst he was a wrestler, he actually competed in one of the very early crossover fights, so to speak. Now, we know crossover fights in this day and age as mixed martial arts and boxing, most notably Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor a couple of years ago. But actually, Chick Cocky Knight was involved in probably one of the very early crossover fights as he was a wrestler, taking on a quite famous boxer.
Indeed, yes. This was Bombardier Billy Wells, the former heavyweight champion. I think it was it 1911 to 1915, and this is 1938, December 13th of December 1938, at the Empress Stadium in Earls Court in London, and lots of coverage sort of pre-fight with regards to Bombardier Billy Wells looking to make a comeback at the age of 49, stepping back into the ring. Lots of talk about, he's donning the gloves again and looking to possibly embark on a fairly short sort of comeback after this fight, depending how it goes. Lots of talk about him still being really fit, and Chick is his opponent. And like you say, it's one of the first exhibition matches that takes place between a wrestler and a boxer. Each are confined to the rules of their own or moves within their own sport. So Chick can only wrestle. Billy Wells can only box. He's obviously got the gloves on. But yeah, it's a fairly short fight, lasts all but 3 minutes, but there's a crowd of around 3,000 people that are there to see it take place. Like I say, there was a lot of build up prior to it, that Wells was looking to make a comeback, promoted by a gentleman called Harold Lane, who was behind Lane's club, which was known as the London Club, which was significant within the field of both professional wrestling and boxing. He used to stage matches at its venue in Baker Street in London. And he's quoted as saying, I'm probably going to have a bet on Billy Wells. I fancy him myself. He's still packing something of a wallop. So you sort of bear in mind what happens during the fight. You're sort of thinking, I wonder whether there is some sort of, whether this was staged to the fact that whatever happened, Wells was always going to win. But Chick puts Wells down. One of his trademark moves was the haymaker, which is like effectively like a shoulder or arm punch. And that fells Wells, puts him down on one knee, and Chick was sort of thinking, well, I've won this, but it was declared a low punch, and so Chick is effectively disqualified. Now, he thought it was a draw, or that effectively he insisted afterwards that he should have won, but the decision is then given to Wells, so Wells is declared the winner. Again, afterwards, there's quite extensive coverage in the press, both in the UK and in Europe, about the fight. Should it ever have been staged? A bit of a fiasco. Wells, was always going to win. Loads of talk with regards to that. And it's interesting. Then, obviously, other matches sort of follow that. In terms of the two sports sort of coming together. So, like I say, it's no mean feat for Chick to step into the ring with somebody who was British Empire heavyweight champion, 1911. I think Billy Wells defended his title 14 times, and I think I'm right in saying he's the first heavyweight ever to win the Lonsdale belt. So, like I say, for Chick to step into the ring with this guy, albeit he's confined to obviously his wrestling moves, and Chick is we're probably looking he's 2 years in. Where are we? It's 1938. So Chick is 6 years into his wrestling career. He's put on quite a bit more bulk, so he's probably somewhere between 16 to 18 stone. Chick is at this point, and like I say before, he was no mean shakes as a boxer in the army, and obviously he'd had this short-lived career in the ring himself for the year 1935-1936. So he knew what he was doing, and to step into the ring, however old Billy Wells was, at the age of 49, it's still quite a significant fight. And to actually effectively put him down on one knee, again, it's significant. And obviously, Wells at this time prior to the fight, he's making a bit of a name of himself in the film industry. He's the gong man basically for the J. Arthur rank. When you see the films all pop up, and at the beginning there's a guy banging the gong. Well, that is Billy Wells in the very early J. Arthur rank films. So the two sort of cross over, because Chick also went on to star in films himself. But like I say, again, obviously significant for the fact that it's one of the first ever boxer v wrestler fights. There's a Bombardier Ale that's out there, which is basically named after Billy Wells. And the fight, of all the coverage that you could think of that there is out there possibly of Billy Wells actually boxing, the one clip that they show on the page on Marston's, which is dedicated to Bombardier Ale and Billy Wells, is the short-lived fight or match between Billy Wells and Chick. So, it all sort of helps, if you like, reinforce the memory of Chick. But it's quite unusual when you think of all the things that you're gonna pop up about Billy Wells that there is. It's that clip which is highlighted. So, like I say, it's a significant match. As we were chatting before, that there are some which have happened since, and there are more presumably which will happen as well. But this was definitely one of the first, and to still have footage out there and you see Chick doing his moves in the ring, is significant, and it's all sort of helped form part of one of the chapters in the book.
So as well as doing the book, you are campaigning to get an accolade for him regarding a certain day in June of 1930, where not only was he a lifesaver once, but he ended up being a lifesaver once more.
Indeed, yes. So 15th of June 1930, obviously prior to Chick becoming a professional wrestler, he's walking over Hammersmith Bridge, and he's with his brother Albie, as he's known. And whilst they're walking over Hammersmith Bridge, they see two people. Chick sees two people in the water. One's a young girl, and she's the one that they notice first, apparently. So Chick's being a quite significant and of a good build and quite a strong swimmer, says to his brother Albie, go over and get call the police. I'm going in. So whilst Albie sort of runs off to get the police, and just before he goes in, he actually notices there's somebody else in the water at the same time. There's a gentleman that's in the water who's, what we found out is that he had gone in to try and rescue the girl and actually got into trouble himself. The tides around Hammersmith, you've only got to see, obviously, on footage when you look at the boat race, the tides around Hammersmith Bridge are quite, well, to say strong, and there's a significant current there is a bit of an understatement. But if you look over the bridge, if you were to walk across the bridge now, if you looked over the side of the railings and looked around, sort of the area that we're talking about is around the what they call the turrets, or the support struts, if you like, of the bridge. They're quite sort of tower-esque in their appearance. You'll see whirlpools of current around there. So again, it's very, very strong water, very tidal water as well. So Chick goes in and brings the girl out to shore on the barn side of the river, and then goes back in. By this time, I think Albie had come back, so the police were sort of on the scene, or arriving on the scene. So leaves the girl with Albie, goes back in and brings the gentleman out. So it's a double life-saving feat that's performed there. And so manages to save both of them, by going in not once but twice and bringing them out individually. And this is, like I say, 1930, and here we are talking about it 90 years later. And ahead of the book, I'd been in touch before embarking on the book and sort of doing some initial background research. This had come to light as one of the two life-saving incidents, and initially this one was thought to be a myth, because, as you know, like in every family, there's stories around various characters in families, and this was just one of them. And people were saying, no, I'll bet you what happened was Chick was actually drunk coming back, saw the police and decided to jump, happened or whatever. But when I was doing the research and got in touch with the Royal Humane Society, who Chick got the first certificate off of for the Gibraltar rescue 6 years earlier, guy that I spoke to there, he said, I've got two events recorded for Chick under his full name. He said there's another one in 1930, and so he said I'd sort of contacted them for copies of the certificates, and he said I've actually got the reports of the incidents as well. So he said I'll send you the copies of those. So we've actually been able to obtain those, and so this just concreted or firmed up the fact that this event not only did happen, but Chick also received another certificate for that. But it's made quite significant for the fact that when you walk over Hammersmith Bridge, there is actually a plaque on there for another gentleman who was also like Chick in the services and had performed a rescue off of there, and he had a plaque. So that sort of got my mind working, and I thought, well, Chick's done this not once but twice. He's gone in to rescue 2 people on there. Why isn't there a plaque for Chick? Which is what his daughter Iris has always said as well. Every time her or friends have been over there in years gone by, and they've always said, well, there's nothing to commemorate, the memory of Chick and what he achieved. So that was it. It was like, let's get in touch with the mayor of Hammersmith and Fulham. Let's get in touch with Hammersmith Council. And now, obviously, the bridge has been shut for some significant time. I thought, well, what better time for something to happen, something to be able to be done. Unfortunately, we'd hit a stone wall in terms of the response, or lack of response, shall we say, from both the mayor and Hammersmith Council to make a decision to commemorate this event 90 years later. So then I thought, well, right, that's it. We'll go full steam ahead on this and set up the petition. And as we speak at the moment, I think we're just short of 250 signatures, but obviously I'm looking to boost that in any way. There's a letter that's gone off to a higher authority as well, and hopefully we can attain some support from a higher element to apply some pressure, shall we say. But yeah, we've got wrestlers on board. We've got support from a couple of MPs as well with regards to it. And, fingers crossed this should really happen. For somebody to perform a double life-saving feat, bear in mind the year that it was, for it to have been officially recorded to get the certificate for it, I think it's long overdue. And obviously, I think it's worthy. In doing the research, it's one of the things that I've remarked on in the book. I don't know, and I'm fully prepared to be corrected. I don't know of any other sportsman or woman that's a triple lifesaver. And that is what Chick Knight is.
So where can people go and find the petition to be able to sign the petition to help get that up and get that forward to the necessary people to be able to get that plaque on Hammersmith Bridge?
So it's on change.org. Get Chick Knight a plaque on Hammersmith Bridge. I'll post the link up on your Twitter feed, if that's okay, after this has gone out, Sean. And it's up on my Twitter feed as well. If you Google Chick Knight Hammersmith Bridge, the change.org petition will pop up straight away. It's number 1 on that. Like I say, if you tap that in on a search engine, Chick Knight Hammersmith or Chick Knight Hammersmith Bridge, bang, it'll pop up, and people can add their signature to it and see who else has signed it. But yeah, we just want this. We feel it's long overdue, and not only that, the Gibraltar side of things, I attained there's been some media coverage of this now, this Hammersmith rescue in the local newspapers in West London and Hammersmith Today, etc. But I attained some coverage last year out in Gibraltar for the Gibraltar rescue, because there was an incident that had happened out in Catalan Bay where sadly a British gentleman, a lawyer, lost his life out there. And I got in touch with the newspaper to say, well, my great uncle Chick had actually performed a rescue. They very kindly did a piece on that rescue. There was subsequently a piece in the Royal Life Saving Society magazine as well. And I then got in touch with Gibraltar House in London, they passed me over to the councillor there, and he put it forward to the mayor and to the governor of Gibraltar again. The mayor of Gibraltar got in touch and said, we have awards every year for such efforts, for life-saving feats, etc. Please put forward Chick for a posthumous life-saving award. And as we speak, that is what he is now up for. So I feel if it's good enough for Gibraltar to put Chick forward for a posthumous life-saving award, then in my mind it's definitely not only long overdue, but rightly deserved that Chick should have a plaque to commemorate what he performed in 1930 on diving off Hammersmith Bridge and into the Thames.
Absolutely. I think most people that listen to his story will agree that I think it's long overdue, very long overdue. I think there's obviously other parts to the story, which I know are going into your book, and I don't expect you to be able to divulge everything because there's going to be a great book coming out about it, of course. But
Sure.
The wrestling side of things, I've read a little bit about him, and what was indicated from the literature that is out there is that what's known in wrestling as heels and faces. And from what I can see, Chick played a very good heel in wrestling. He was very good at being the bad guy in wrestling, and even ended up on an exhibition broadcast on the BBC in 1938.
That's right, yeah. That was against Earl McCready. It was a Canadian wrestler that had come across. And again, no mean shakes as a wrestler, Earl McCready, Canadian champion. And yeah, Chick is where the title of the book comes from, London's Lovable Villain, is the tag that's associated, or one of the various tags, and one of the many tags that's associated to Chick during his career as a wrestler. London's Lovable Villain is one of the poster taglines to promote the fights. Killer Cockney is another. Hardest man, toughest fighter ever to enter the ring. Chick doesn't take prisoners, doesn't take defeat, doesn't want to lose, all this kind of thing. And he's known as the villain, the bad guy. When he got stories of when he used to fight up in Newcastle, whenever he came out to go to the ring, all the crowd apparently would chant "Dirty Chick, Dirty Chick." So, and in doing the research for the extensive fight history in terms of his wrestling career, what's come to light is several, or shall we say, quite numerous instances of Chick's moves, be it legal or illegal, when he's in the ring to win fights, some of which have involved his opponents being chucked out the ring, some of which have involved the refs and the opponents being chucked out the ring. So yeah, he's definitely a character, and with getting in touch with some of the wrestling sites, the vintage wrestling sites, and the historians of wrestling who've been a great assistance. There's never been anything documented, never been anything written about Chick or his career, and his fights in the ring. And obviously, we're talking the early 1930s, so this is when the sport is really sort of just starting to get itself a name, if you like. And then sort of later on in the 30s, it's actually sort of taken seriously when a set of rules by Lord Mount Evans are produced, so that the sport as a whole takes a more professional element to it. And Chick's all part of that, and whenever I've looked at various books that have been done by former professional wrestlers, and Chick's not mentioned. And even one of his great foes that he comes up against, and this is a name that's extensively associated with the field of professional wrestling as a significant heavyweight champion, is one Bert Azarati, another guy who would go on to become a film star as well, and work on the doors, as in a doorman, bouncer, effectively. Another thing that Chick went on to do. So it's just that he's never been given the acclaim, and that's the one thing that really touched me, because not only obviously from the family side of things, but not only from the life-saving feats, which hopefully we're getting acknowledgement for now, and rightly so, but also the sporting achievement, if you like. All right, he never was a champion in the field of professional wrestling, apart from when he was in the army. But he still fought all the great names. There's a roll call of names. I won't list them all now, but like I say, the Bert Azaratis of this world, the Joe Corneliuses, people who either went on or were heavyweight champions at wrestling. Chick gets in the ring with these, and in the case of Joe Cornelius, who went on to become a champion, Chick beats him. So when he puts his mind to it, he's a decent all-in heavyweight wrestler who, when he takes his match or his fight seriously, he can knock it with the best of them and beat them, which he does. And according to the historians, they reckon there was around in excess of 2,000 probably fights, maybe more, that Chick fought throughout his career. Well, I've managed to find just under 1,000 and document them, and that includes tournaments back in Singapore, where he spends some considerable time out there, in India, Czechoslovakia, in Germany, in Paris. So he's fighting all over, and like I say, be it under either his name, Chick Knight or Cocky Knight, or this alias that he uses as well. So yeah, he's hopefully this will bring to light exactly sort of the prominence that Chick was in the field of professional wrestling at the very early outset.
I think it's safe to say from the story that you've told us in the episode is that he sounds very much like he's a little bit of an unsung hero of his time that obviously you're working vigorously on to try and get out there and tell that story. And the story gets even different, because I also read that he was in a couple of films and he actually starred alongside George Formby, who,
yeah,
for anybody who knows, George Formby was the great entertainer of that particular era. So the fact that he was not only a professional boxer at one point, he was a professional wrestler. He was involved in life saving, and then he's also in films as well. So to me, it sounds like he's a very unsung hero that deserves this posthumous accolade. And yeah, I think it's only right that he should get that. And the point of us sitting down to discuss his life today is to give a bit of a snapshot of it before your book comes out, and so that people can get a little bit more intrigued about who he really is. And when the book does come out, they'll be able to read more in-depth information about him and his life. And it's something that I think people should go out there and support.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, as you say, Chick stars in several George Formby films. George and his wife actually come along to see Chick fight up in Blackpool, and we've got that recorded from one of the newspaper clippings that they're actually at one of Chick's fights to watch him. So the two were again obviously had a friendship. It was in his speaking part that we found, and which there is coverage on, is a film called Trouble Brewing with George Formby, and George gets involved in a horse racing ring. I think I'm right in saying, and the scene where Chick is involved in is. George goes along to what he thinks is a swimming bars. It is a swimming bars, but unfortunately there's no swimming taking place this particular day. What's taking place there is a wrestling match or wrestling matches. And Chick is one of the fighters in the outside, outside of the ring with the various spectators there, watching a fight taking place in the ring. And George sort of goes into the dressing room and bumps into Chick coming back out of the dressing room, and he says to him, "Oh, what's it like out there?" And he says, "Is it cold?" And Chick says, "Oh no, it's too hot. And he's got a dressing gown on, Chick has, so he doesn't know that obviously Chick is a wrestler. He's come from wrestling. So George goes out there in a bathing suit, and lo and behold, gets dragged into the wrestling ring. But yeah, Chick was in again. That's proved a troublesome point from the research side of things, because sadly a lot of the studios that Chick was associated with, and he had quite an extensive film career. It's reported there's at least a dozen films with Chick in, several George Formby and some others, but they were obviously with the likes of Ealing Studios or Gainsborough Film Studios, and he works as a stuntman, and unfortunately none of these have kept records of the actors or the extras that took part in them. So it's, apart from obviously the footage of trouble brewing, it's been quite a painstaking journey to sort of trawl through, and obviously sit down and think, well, okay, when is Chick most likely to have appeared in these films, and what ones? A few of them, there's a Flanagan and Allen one that he's in as well as an extra as a prisoner, when they're inside in a film. So I think I've got probably around half a dozen. There's another one with Frankie Howard, and there's just connections there that occur with the wrestling community, because some of the wrestling guys appear in films. A Kid for Two Farthings is one, which has got one of Chick's mates in, who's also a wrestler. And there's the Diana Dawes connection there. Diana Dawes starred in several films with wrestlers around that time. Kid for Two Farthings was one of them. I think Primo Carnera is actually in there as well. He's a massive, great guy who, again, Chick come up in the ring against. And we found, or certainly from several members of the family, that Chick was quite close pals with Diana Dawes. And when she married Dennis Hamilton in the early 1950s, her first husband, that the car that she used to be transported to Westminster to get married was Chick's car. So there's all this sort of celebrity film star connections and friendships. One of the pictures in the book that we've got as well shows Chick backstage, and he's been greeted by sort of a bevy of film stars and celebrities, and the three that are prominent in the picture is, well, the first of which is Joseph Locke, who's the Irish opera singer. Then we've got the comedian Ben Warris, and then we've got the film director and film star Brian Forbes. So, and these are all shaking hands with Chick. So he's quite connected, if you like, for somebody who's from that sporting field, but has made that crossover into films as well. Like I say, he worked as a stuntman as well, and was apparently appeared in stunts in a film called The Wicked Lady, which was with Margaret Lockwood. And again, it's just been a case of trying to sort of trawl through and find films which could possibly star Chick in and trawl through through numerous black and white films to try and spot him as an extra, or popping up somewhere in the background of these films, and to actually document them. So again, that's another side which obviously has not been recorded before. There was only sort of reference to the Trouble Brewing one initially, and it's referred to in Chick's obituary that he starred in a dozen films, which then obviously set the ball rolling for me to do the more extensive research into that side of his career. And one of the celebrity guys that's a very, very close pal with Chick, and that we've got images of the two together as well, is a gentleman also connected with the boxing fraternity, and that's one Albert Pierpoint, better known as Britain's last hangman or executioner. And the two of them were very, very close pals. Chick used to stay with Albert at his pub in Oldham, just outside of Manchester, when he was fighting up there. The two would meet up regularly, talk about their love of boxing, share a few beers and cigars, which they both loved as well. And such was Albert's love of boxing, after he'd quit the profession of executioner. He actually went on to, what I've found is he actually went on to work for the British Border Boxing Control. So there's that sort of connection there, and again, to have someone as a close pal as that, the two, is probably one of the most unlikely friendships that you could imagine. And you think, well, how's that connected? And then when you delve into Albert's side of things, you find this boxing connection, and that's what's emerged to connect the two. And whether Albert actually saw Chick fight as a professional very early on, we think that might well have been the case, that Albert was at one of Chick's very early fights, and the two sort of became pals that way. So yeah, it makes for interesting reading in the book.
It's going to be great when the book finally does get its release to really read into everything. One name that popped up during our conversation there was Primo Carnera, who was once world heavyweight champion, went on to be beaten by the great Joe Louis. So there's some great connections there with him in his life and his career within sport and in film. So it's going to be really interesting to read the book once it comes out, to get a true nature of what he was really like as a person. So it's quite exciting, really, that he's got so many connections and crossovers for a very storied life. Now, for you, obviously doing the research and putting that out there on social media, if people want to keep in touch and they want to follow and they want to see the journey that you're undergoing at the moment, where can they find you to do that?
So they can connect with me on Twitter. Again, if they tap in Chick Knight Hammersmith, or Chick Knight, they'll find me on social media. I'm on Facebook as well. So again, they'll find me at Andy Sco 62507. I think I am on Twitter. They can find me on there, and they can keep abreast of pre-publication and when it goes live. Like we were saying, I'm investigating. This is my second book. Chick was actually introduced in the first, of which there's a link on my Twitter feed for that, which was about my late father. So Chick was introduced in that book, and that sort of laid the foundations, if you like, for Chick to be the next sort of book that I would embark on. Little imagining how involved it would be, and how deep, far and wide his career would be, and just it's just opened so many doors and avenues with regards to what he actually did during his life. One of the things I didn't mention, just getting back to Chick's boxing career, actually, when he came out of the services, just before he had that sort of one-off professional fight, he'd actually turned amateur, and we got it recorded that he won the London Business Houses Boxing Championship. They had their own amateur athletics association at the time, and he also won. He was champion of what was called the Police H Division Boxing Championship. And he sort of formed quite a close association with the police as a result of that. He was quite friendly with various policemen in the Metropolitan Police, etc. But that championship is now the Police H Division. That's now known as the Lafone Cup. And that's competed for every year. During the research again, I've contacted the boxing guys who are responsible for the police community clubs, and they've very kindly dug out various bits and pieces with regards to that, and said, yeah, that championship effectively is known as the Lafone Cup, and it's now so big that it's held at the O2. So they said, in their words that Chick must have been a significant boxer to have won that, because it's no mean sort of championship. It's taken quite seriously, and obviously, policemen and boxers at that time could take part in it to go up for it. So it was quite a significant championship to win. And where the title actually comes from, the Police H Division. They were actually one of the most notorious and feared divisions that were established in the Metropolitan Police. And they were based each division is responsible for a particular territory, so a particular area. So H Division was actually Whitechapel. Now that's significant because they were responsible for, at that time, well, going back obviously many years, they were responsible for trying to find Jack the Ripper. That took place obviously in East London, and Chick's local Hammersmith police force was known as T Division. So all these things sort of connect him with both sports, both wrestling and boxing. But like we've said, like we discussed, he was obviously no mean shakes as a wrestler, as a boxer, and as a wrestler. So I think it's only right that obviously this whole thing should be documented, just to set straight, a few records that obviously what he did, what he achieved, and where he sat in the field of these sports, but also obviously with regards to his life-saving heroics, which he should justly be rewarded for.
Absolutely, and it's been a pleasure to have you on to sit down and discuss it. And it's a story that I wasn't too familiar with, being honest. And obviously, as you started to come around social media more, and you started to promote the petition more, you start to see it, and you start to get intrigued about Chick's story. And then obviously having you on today for this episode has been really enlightening to really hear that actually there's a lot more layers to this particular onion. That meets the eye, and it's great to be able to go through it all. So just finally then, for people that want to sign the petition and want to follow you, just one more time, just let them know where they can do that.
Sure. Yep. So if they want to Google Chick Knight Hammersmith, that will throw up the petition, which is on change.org, or go on to change.org and go tap in Chick Knight, and that will bring up the petition for them to sign. They can find me on Twitter, Andy Sco 62507. They should be able to find me there, or again tap in on Twitter, search Chick Knight Hammersmith. My name will pop up. There's a link to the first book, as I said, which was about my late father, where Chick gets introduced. But they can keep finding updates with regards to what's happening with the book. Like I said to you off air, we're sort of going towards the proofreading stage. We're going to go through the trawl of images that we've got to select the best ones. We sadly got none of Chick as a boxer, which would have been nice, but unfortunately the only things we've got of that side of his career were the newspaper reports. So unless anything comes to light with regards to him actually having the gloves on, there won't be an image of him, obviously as a boxer. But yeah, no, hopefully it'll be of interest to people that like both sports. But obviously, Chick is a sportsman, as you've quite rightly said, with a whole load of different elements to his life and to his career, both in and out of the ring. As I said to you earlier, he went on to become probably one of London's first, professional sort of bouncers and doormen, if you like, which a few of the wrestlers, obviously quite rightly so, bearing in mind their prowess of sort of knocking people out or whatever, became. So he was one of London's first sort of doormen and bouncers, and there's other bits. There's a nice bit in there which I'll leave, which is with Rocky Marciano. Funny enough, one of the great heavyweight champions, where Chick is doing security for Marciano's brought over for a dinner at the Anglo-American Sporting Club. I think it's about 1965. It's a gathering of British heavyweights who've come to pay tribute to Rocky Marciano, and quite interestingly, obviously, all the great names, the Len Harveys, who Chick also knew, who ran a pub in Sheen, not far from where Chick was living in Barnes, so he would pop in there for a drink and have a chat with Len Harvey, another great heavyweight champion. So all these heavyweights are gathered there. I think Len Harvey was master of ceremonies for that event where Rocky was over, and lo and behold, in the background is another heavyweight, Chick, providing security for that event. So so elements are, just the connections with the two sports, the connections with the celebrities, and hopefully people will find it an interesting reading, because it documents Chick's life, like I say, and various things that happen during that career. And there's chapters on obviously the Billy Wells fight, the whole boxing career. We've listed and recorded all the boxing fights and what happens during them. Thanks to Miles Templeton digging that out for me, which has been great. And the research has been wide, varied, interesting, very involved, very painstaking, but hopefully worthwhile once this is published. And we're not far off, so it's just a question of sitting down, reading it, putting it together, and getting it sorted.
Well, it's going to be great once it comes out, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to knowing more about Chick from the snapshot that you've given us in this episode today. It's been a pleasure to have you on for this episode. Thank you so much for taking the time out to share a little bit of a snapshot of his life.
Cheers, Sean. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Well, there we go then, fight fans. What a truly brilliant story. To be able to sit down with Andrew Scott and speak about his great uncle, Chick Cocky Knight, I really enjoyed it. I honestly, genuinely enjoyed hearing about a man who was a professional boxer, a man who also crossed over into the wrestling world and also competed in probably one of the first crossover fights in history, which is crazy to even think about. It's one of them unknown stories which Andy Scott's brought to the forefront, which I'm really looking forward to seeing the book and reading more about Chick Cocky Knight and about his career in more detail. And I hope you guys have had a great experience listening to somebody that maybe you didn't even know about. I mean, look at the life-saving feats that he was participating in. The fact that he went and saved not only one person, but he went and saved another person on a separate occasion is something that he should be commemorated for, really. And I think that's the whole point of, Andy doing the book and the petition is to get that recognition for him, and it's really good that, he is doing that. So please, if you see Andrew Scott on social media, make sure you give him a retweet, make sure you share his story around about Chick Hockey Night, make sure when his book comes out, if you are thoroughly interested in hearing more about the story, then go out and buy it and support an independent writer like Andrew Scott, who is truly working hard to put all this together. I hope you guys, of course, have enjoyed it, and if you have, please let us know, as always, on social media at BTR Boxing Pod on Twitter and the BTR Boxing Podcast Network on Facebook. If you've not already subscribed to the podcast, you can do so by checking us out on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or any available podcasting app out there. Leave us a rating. 5 stars would be amazing, but if it's anything less, let me know why. Thank you very much for listening, fight fans, and we'll see you on the next episode.